We'll go ahead and get started. Danny Salazar from Employment Security Department is here to kick us off, and he'll walk us through the Career Connect Washington Program Builder application. He's got some slides to share, and then we will go ahead as the Career Connect Northwest Network and tell y'all a little bit more about our regional strategies and how to make sure that your proposals are aligning with that information, both that Danny presents, our information, and then our sector lead strategies as well, to best position your proposal to move forward in the application process. So with that, Danny, I will go ahead and hand it to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let me get my screen up. Alrighty. Yeah, so just wanted to kind of share the process, the new application. As all of you have seen this, you might be familiar with the old process. We definitely did revise it substantially, so it might feel and look a little bit differently, but want to just make sure that everyone feels comfortable with what's going to be expected of them and what we're looking through as you're going through the process. So if you have any questions while you submit your application and you're kind of wondering what's going on, you'll kind of have these to refer to. The first slide, I like sharing this because these are kind of things, I know when I got into this role, I never had applied for grants before, so I wasn't really sure what those conversations look like or even where to start. So this is just kind of a guide for anyone that's out there and applying for either this program builder grant or any other grant that's offered, both state and federal. These are just kind of guidelines of what conversations you should be having with your partners. These are really important to make sure that all of the questions usually are addressed. Everyone kind of understands what their role is, and then you have kind of exact information that you might need to submit to the application or share about your program and who's doing what. Also, like highlighting here that based on our system and our partners, all these folks that you see down there below are here to support you. If you have any questions, I know that several have strategies that you want to make sure that you are familiar with so you can align with. Washington STEM is also there to assist. If you're building a registered apprenticeship or a recognized pre-apprenticeship, there are L&I consultants all over the state, so making sure you connect with them. And then if you haven't applied for grants before, DS, so Department of Enterprise Services, we do use their technology solution. We kind of have to, WEBs. So there's a lot of things, if you're not familiar, that you can kind of familiarize yourself with. And we are in this period currently. So the RFP for round 13 was open on August 15th of this year, and it will close next month on the 15th. It is not such an extensive application, so we felt like 2 months was adequate time for everyone to kind of go in there and submit their application. These are also kind of just steps, guidelines of, right, you download the application. If you haven't seen it before, make sure you're familiar with those questions. You might have to send out the application to your partner so they know what information they might need to provide to you. You might need to discuss one last time to make sure everyone's in alignment and an agreement of what you're submitting into ESD. And then they'll submit that information. And if you're the lead applicant or the program builder, you'll be consolidating that information and completing the final application and submitting it to us. These appendixes are exactly the appendixes that you'll need to submit into ESD. If you're missing one of them, our contracts office will kindly ask you to kind of submit those so that we have a complete application from you. And then I'll go into more in detail of these actual appendixes once we move forward. These are the different phases that we'll be encountering during this round and hopefully moving forward. The administrative review, phase 1, we've always had it. These are just things that we want to make sure that everyone has submitted a complete application and all the appendixes that were required. Phase 4 has also always been here. We have our selection committee, kind of those final individuals that make the final determinations on which organizations receive contracts and which ones do not. Phase 2 is new, and this is kind of intentional, is that we are wanting to leverage all of our experts that are out there in the field, our regional networks, our sector leaders, our Career Connected Learning coordinators. We want to leverage their expertise, so they'll be advising us on which applications kind of meet those strategies and which do not. Phase three is new as well. And we did this for a lot of many different reasons. Want to make sure that folks have an ability to stay in the queue with us. If you don't get awarded, you don't have to reapply. If there's other funding that ESD receives, we'll be able to leverage that same application. So we kind of want to make sure that, and because managing federal grants or federal money, there are little requirements that you do need to have as an organization, and we want to kind of have that time to be able to assist you and develop those procedures or policies or anything like that that you might need for your organization, especially for those small businesses. If you don't have capacity, then we'll create capacity with you. The next one is the first application, like the actual application. So you either have to pick one or the other. It's either it's a new program, which means there is no program like it. It's just concepts. There isn't anything currently in place. You can develop something new and leverage things that already exist. So you don't have to write curriculum from scratch, right? There are Core Plus, there are kind of already existing things that you can leverage if you want to, but you have to build around that. And the building around doesn't exist. So it's a brand new program there. And this is just kind of basic information. We want to understand what your program is, where it's at, who you're serving, what kind of partners you have, or how many, things like that. If there's already a program that exists and you're expanding that, either you're adding additional partners or you're adding additional slots, additional school districts, you're kind of adding different career pathways, all that kind of good stuff, you would fall into the expansion. Just know, I do want to be mindful of this, that not all these questions are required based on your expansion. We know that sometimes folks are just expanding geographically and they're not adding new partners. So maybe that partner question isn't applicable to you, and we completely understand that. So don't feel like every question in here needs to be addressed. The ones that we do need to understand are the ones that are right. We want to know, how does your program align with the regional strategy, and we do want to know how your program aligns with the industry strategy if your industry is represented. And then also we want kind of a high level executive summary of your program. This is the only question in here that has a word limit. So just kind of be mindful of that. Yeah. Next is kind of the phase two. Like I said, phase one is just our contracts office looking at all the different applications that are received and making sure that we have full applications. Phase two is I will be consolidating all those applications and sending them out to our advisors. We do have 2 full days scheduled that we'll be convening with our advisors, and then we'll be kind of discussing each one in full detail and then getting caucus determinations on which ones actually align and which ones do not. If you, at this point, which is different from in the past, is that in the past you would have to go through this entire process, wait a couple months, and then all the folks that were announced as a apparent successful bidder were guaranteed contracts. This is a little bit differently. All the folks that are announced as apparent successful bidders means that they meet that kind of minimum requirement, and that you have a potential to receive a contract, but not guaranteed. If you don't, if your program doesn't align here, we'll be kind of notifying you, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of ask for a debrief with us, and we'll kind of share what elements of your application need additional work, or what things were not allowable in your budget, things like that. So you'll get feedback immediately. If you make it as an ASB, we'll be putting you into our convenience pool. We can have you in here for quite a bit of time, and we can extend your time within here. Kind of the expectation of organizations that are in here are, you have access to us at ESD for any questions you might have. You can start developing your phase four kind of presentation slides that you'll need to develop when called upon. If you don't have any kind of like time record, time and effort keeping or timesheets, or you don't have like a fiscal process, or you don't know how to keep receipts of things, or kind of those fiscal things, my monitoring team here at ESD We'll be providing training to folks in the convenience pool. Our fiscal team's going to be here providing training to our fiscal team, folks in the pool, and then you'll have access to me. So any kind of questions you might have about like our system or our system actors or what's required, I'll be able to answer all those questions while you're sitting in here this entire time. Um, and yeah, so, and like I said here, one of the great things is that if we run out of funding, that's the only reason why you wouldn't get an opportunity to present. Once we receive additional funding, we'll just carry your application over to the next rounds and you won't have to reapply again. Also, if there's another funding source that we get and we're like, man, we really have some really great opportunities in here that align with that, you won't need to reapply for those either. We'll just be able to leverage that existing application for other funding sources that we might have. So this is kind of what the presentation outline is. These are kind of required. We do want you, we went from narrative, so you used to have to answer all these in like words. We want you to kind of share your presentation now, and you can develop that presentation however you like. You can bring in presenters however you like, as long as we kind of understand what the scope is here, who are your partners, what's their roles, things like that. So make sure that you download this and use it as a guide while you're developing your presentation slides. Then the last phase is we will be leveraging our selective committee members. These are all state agency representative individuals that kind of are our executive leaders for Career Connect Washington initiative. Um, we'll be meeting with the governor's office and those selective committee members, and they'll be kind of giving me the priority of which applications they want to review first and so on and so forth. So at that point in time, I'll be able to call upon, education programs that are in career prep in Spokane, or IT programs that are in launch in King County, right? So we'll be able to kind of compare programs that are really similar in nature and level with each other. I'll ask those organizations that fit that criteria that are in the convenience pool to kind of share those presentation slides with me so I can send them out to our committee members ahead of time. I'll schedule and facilitate that conversation, and you'll present to all of those selective committee members, and they also in return have an opportunity to ask questions of you. Once those applications have been completed or presentations, those selective committee members do have an opportunity to kind of, if they're still unclear about certain things, they can go out and reach out to our advisors so that they have an opportunity to answer any questions that they might have. And then they have three kind of final determinations here that they're able to make. The first one is you kind of had a lot of it, confidence of what you're doing, but they felt like you maybe had some missing pieces. They can select to kind of send you back to the convenience pool so that you can revise your plan. That's another beauty about being in the convenience pool is that you get to revise your final plan and you're not kind of stuck with whatever you presented, which is really nice, something that's never been done before. The second one is you've kind of been sitting there for a while and there's a lot of questions that weren't answered or they're really unclear of what you're trying to do and who's doing what. At that point in time, they could remove you from the convenience pool altogether and then kind of kindly ask you to apply for the next round of funding. And then the third decision that they can make is that you're ready to go. They know exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, and who's doing what. And you could have started spending the money yesterday. So we can start going into contract negotiations at that point in time. And I'll notify you of that and kind of give you all the supporting documentation that we'll need to kind of move forward with the contract. I'll also notify the regional leader so that they know that you're about to start in contract in their region. And then I'll also notify the sector leader, if applicable, that you're going to begin working on your project. The last one is just kind of other considerations. Make sure that if you have any kind of questions or if you want to submit your application, that's the website or the link email address to send it to. Please make sure that all the subject line is how it's stated there. Make sure that you submit all of the appendixes like I mentioned. Use Microsoft Office software or PDFs, no other ones. We won't be able to open it or view it. Make sure that you don't use any zip files. We won't be able to access those. That last appendix too has a lot of kind of legalese stuff. Make sure that you kind of walk through those and either check what's applicable to your organization. And then another reminder that once we make those apparent successful bidders, you do have 3 business days to kind of, if you are wanting to request a debrief, you're more than welcome to, and we'll be able to give you a lot of information about that. And then all the announcements are going to be made on webs initially. So we'll make a posting on webs. So make sure that you're kind of checking on it or getting notifications from that system. And then we'll also make a kind of higher email distribution announcement from our Career Connect Washington website. And then with that, I will share it back to Jenny.
Thank you so much, Danny. That was fantastic. And I think that that does answer a lot of early questions that we've been getting. So I appreciate you sharing. Why don't we I'm wondering, for folks here, are there specific questions? Maybe I think it might be a nice time to ask you, Danny, some specific questions regarding the process, and then again, keep in mind, y'all, that that after Danny has agreed to stick around too till the end. So we can ask some questions of Danny now, and then we'll go ahead. Alyssa and Sinead and I will present a little bit more about the regional strategy and aligning to that piece and what those expectations are. And then we'll answer more questions about that. But for now, Carol and Jill, I see you ready to roll with some questions. So go ahead.
Actually, I have more questions for you and Sinead, I think, than I do for Danny, and I have Danny's email. So, Danny, if I have a question, I will email you.
Hey, Jill, you have a question?
Yeah, my question is kind of that convenience pool piece of it. It's like, because if we get granted to be an apparent successful bidder and put through there, should we just start making a presentation with hopes that we get called to interview, or will you give us ample time to let us know to convene our partners to prepare for an interview? Because you said you do it bi-monthly or something like that. Well, just how much headway will we have to prepare for an interview?
I would, my recommendation is kind of start kind of knowing what that might look like. I think there is going to be a group of individuals or organizations that are going to need to be ready to present on January 1st. So there is, but I don't know what industry or what type of programming they might look like. So once I kind of have that details, in probably like priority order, I'll be able to kind of share what that looks like for everyone that's in the convenience pool. So that can give you a kind of sense of when you might be expected to present. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is while you're in there, it's kind of you get some time to pre-work, kind of get things ready, kind of understand. And like I said, for those presentation pieces, it's a lot of like, who are your partners? What are they doing? If you have an already existing program, it's a lot of data, like, right, those kind of things. But yeah, that's kind of how I expect is I'll have kind of a sense of what that looks like around December time. So if you're in the convenience pool, I'll be able to kind of share what that timeline might look like for everyone that's sitting in there.
So, Danny, is that presentation a stronger presentation if the partners are present? I mean, some part of our biggest challenge in the first grant that we wrote was just like finding a time when everyone could get together. So we spent a lot of like individual meeting here, individual meeting there, and then pulling it all together. So, but well, you're nodding. So yes, it's a better presentation if they're present.
I think this is going to be the first time we're doing this. So I would say that is a strategy that you can bring folks with you. Just know that it is going to be a limited time. So, you might not be able to get everyone that's there with you to be able to present or share. Maybe if you guys split up the slides, that could be a
Okay.
kind of a strategy. You can attach maybe letters of support. They're not required, but that's also another strategy if you want to just send it off with the slide deck. But I think really what's going to be really important is conveying that, who are they, what are they doing, how are they, are you giving them money, are they getting money, right? Those type of things. And just making sure that you kind of walk through that checklist of the presentation requirements, and if you're able to answer all those questions really clearly and concise, I think that's really what that final committee is going to be looking for. Now, if you want to bring in folks, I think that's just extra, but you can. You're more than welcome to. There's no limitation on it. Just know that there is limited time. So they're not going to be really extensive meetings. They're probably going to be short and sweet kind of time slots.
Okay.
Danny, to that point, speaking, what exactly does short and sweet mean? Are we talking 15 minutes? I mean, do you have a feel for how long those presentations will be?
I'd say anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then you had mentioned too letters of support. So letters of support are not being submitted in the initial application, but potentially when at the presentation point, when slide decks come through, that could be another way to show partner support.
Yes, they're not required, right? The only thing that is required is what's on that presentation outline. So that's why I kind of consider it a strategy. If you want to reinforce the partnership and you want to reinforce kind of the your dedication of partners, that's totally up to you. We did not make it a requirement because we know how difficult that might be and trying to get letters and getting them on time and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, that's just kind of up to you if you want to.
Holly, I see you do have a question.
I do. Good morning. I have a question, and forgive me, I'm coming in a little bit off of a busy week like everybody else, and it's been a while since I've looked at this. But in the announcement, it mentions opportunities, kind of developing industry aligned programs in targeted counties and industry sectors. Could I hear a little bit more about what those counties might be? And I think I know what the sectors might be, but any information would be great there as well.
So counties, it's targeted counties is we just want to know where the program is going to be housed. And that could be Thurston County, right? Whatcom County. That's just kind of like where is the program gonna be, the instruction gonna be given.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And then the targeted industries, it's like healthcare or machinist or automotive, right? We just want to, it's kind of just giving us a baseline. If we don't know anything about your concept or program itself, we just kind of want to know, like, so I can kind of map it where it's at, and they're kind of, this is the focus of study, or these are the career clusters that we're going to be looking at, that kind of stuff.
And are those clusters kind of outlined on the Career Connect Washington website that we might want to kind of take a closer look at and make sure that what we propose is aligned with that? And again, sorry, it's a basic question.
It's okay. No, it's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Every question is good. We do have kind of high priority sectors that we've identified, and we have actually organizations that are leading those, which that's what we're referring to as like the sector leaders.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if you have an industry that aligns with those, I would definitely encourage you to kind of reach out to them. Their strategies are posted on the website as well, so you can kind of look for what that might look like programming wise. But just knowing that there's a lot of industries out there and not all of them might be represented, we also welcome any other ones that are not in there, because that'll inform us of, we got a lot of these, this might be a new high priority sector, or there's a lot of interest in this area, right? So it kind of gives us information and data that we might use as a collective to kind of add an additional sector leader or something like that. And I've received this question of like, what if my industry is not represented in those high priority sectors, right? Then that sector alignment might not be applicable to you. But since you are hosting that program somewhere in Washington, there's definitely a regional network or a regional leader that you will need to kind of connect with and be in alignment with.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Just to follow up on that, out of y'all's sectors that you have identified, there aren't any specific ones you're looking for this round, like maritime, healthcare, or is it just kind of all of them? Okay.
All of them. Mm-hmm.
So to support that, I did pop into the chat the link to the Career Connect Washington website. And this specifically links to the Career Connect Washington sector leaders page. And then if you scroll down and click through, you will be able to see the specific sector leads and their plans. We will get to talking about that a little bit. So that's one piece, those sector leads. And then each region, Holly, each region also has identified some priority sectors that align to regional needs. So there's been a lot of research that has gone into all that work per region. So we will go through that for our region here, Skagit, Whatcom Island, San Juan, and Snohomish counties. But you will have a regional network that has also identified priority sectors. So again, as Danny said, that doesn't mean you can't apply for a different sector, but each regional network does have priorities that they really are trying to build career connected learning in throughout the space. Any other questions before we jump into the regional strategy piece? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do that. I will go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to pass it on to Alyssa, who's going to kick off this section.
Great, thanks. Those are great questions, and more might come up during this, so please write them down or make a note of them, and we'll take some questions at the end. Quick slides here. So I think we've met most everyone here, so nice to see you. Again, we are Career Connect Washington. We are the Northwest Network. And Jen, I think you got to advance the slides. If you could, there you go, perfect. So you were talking about our network. So here's a map. These are all of the networks around the state. The shaded in teal in the top left, that's us, Northwest. And so every network has their priorities and their priority sectors. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So those are great questions to set us up for it. In our network, it's co-directed by Career Connect Northwest. Covers Island, San Juan, Skagit, Snohomish, and Whatcom counties. And it's together with Snohomish STEM, Economic Alliance, and the Northwest Education Service District 189. And we have 35 school districts and tribal education compact schools. For the state, just for ratio, about 16% of the K-12 students are here in the Northwest network. Next slide, perfect. So some of you may be familiar with the Career Connect continuum. Here's some examples of what that means. And we have links too that we've shared out that go back to the Career Connect Washington website. They go into more details about each one: career exploration, career prep, and career launch. And there's a question on your application of which one are you applying for. You choose one. So you can choose career explore, career prep, or career launch. And there was an FAQ packet that went out recently. In a previous rounds, they have prioritized career launch, for example, but that is not the case for this round. So they're all equal. And then here's some examples along the side for what does career awareness and exploration look like. These might be worksite tours. These might be job shadowing. Career prep, these could be pre-apprenticeships, some CTE programs that don't require work-based learning, a 90-hour on-site internship. So these are high school primarily, these examples. And then career launch is where it shifts into a registered apprenticeship, a youth registered apprenticeship, and then some partnerships with career and technical colleges. So that's the career, that's the Career Connected Learning Continuum. Please get to know it, get familiar with it, and choose one of the main points. And the next slide. So Danny's mentioned this is a program building fund, funding to support program building. So this is the real simple breakdown of that. we are in this should fund the green box. So there were a lot of questions in the FAQ file about, can we use this to develop the partnerships? No, those partnerships should already be developed. You should already have a plan. And so that would be that red box on the left. So we are in the green box. You're moving forward with the plan. Your partnerships are well versed. You know what their roles are. They know what their roles are. And with these funds, you can build out the program or expand the program. And then it stops right before program implementation. So it cannot implement the program, it can build it. And I might have a question for Dan on this for clarification. We've talked about piloting programs. So that generally counts in program building because maybe you do need to try it and see how it goes before it's a fully implemented program. So we might circle that. Do you want to jump in, Danny?
Yes, yeah, so definitely piloting a component of your program is allowable. And the keyword here is piloting because you are wanting to kind of assess whether that timing or the resources or the materials that's being presented is going to be valuable in the outcome of your program. So we can do that and, kind of getting feedback from what you're presenting or the pilot itself and kind of revising on that, totally allowable under this funding.
Perfect. So hopefully that explains kind of the parameters of program building, and does not include program implementation. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jenny, who's going to talk a little bit about our specific network goals and our priorities sectors. Jenny.
Thank you, Alyssa. So here at Career Connect Northwest, we have 3 goals. To catalyze regional stakeholder partnerships, collaborations, and strategies, to increase equity and access to family wage high demand career opportunities, and then to support coherent career pathways and workforce readiness. And we think that you will see these goals reflected in our brand new, hot off the press, regional strategies document that we have just published. All of the regional networks do have a regional network plan for the next several years. And these have just been completed over the summer. So I encourage you, if you, I see you, Holly, if you are working with another regional network, make sure you connect with them to review their plan before you apply. Here's a brief outline of the plan, and I'm also I'm gonna pop a direct link into the chat. The QR code goes also to the same place as the link in the chat too. So it's an 11-page document. I do encourage you to take a look at it. But as you can see, you can take a look at these high-level pieces. We definitely are looking at apprenticeship, internship, employer engagement, CTE alignment. How are we moving the Career Connected Learning Continuum on to career launch, which is again how we're really launching students and others into the workplace. But what I'm going to concentrate on today for the purposes of this is our program builder support, which is all of you. So it's important to know within our regional strategy that we have identified priority regional sectors in the Northwest region. We've consulted our workforce development councils, 2 within the region, and these are very much aligned with regional priorities here in our 5 counties that we serve. So the priority sectors that we are looking at are information technology and computer science, construction, manufacturing, aerospace, and healthcare. However, we do want to recognize some emerging priorities, which include clean tech, maritime, life science, and education. So if you are thinking of a project within any of these sectors, you are right within the purview of the regional strategy that we're hoping to really look to create some momentum around building some coherent career pathways for students. We do have the link in this slide deck to the sector information, and that is the link that we've already popped in the chat earlier. So how our network will be able to support you within the process. Of course, we're publishing our strategies. We're sharing this grant opportunity with you, email, newsletters, and information sessions. Here we are today. And we will refer to the sector strategies because we know and Sinead's going to cover this too, but for strong applications, you want to, if you are within one of those sectors that Career Connect Washington has identified, you will really want to speak to their sector strategy as well as your region's strategy. Walking through the RFP, answering questions, reviewing drafts, we're here for you for that. That review draft piece, make sure, again, the due date is mid-October. You'll want to get us a copy of that draft the week before, at least, to make sure that we have time to review and offer any input. And then we can also introduce your organization to additional stakeholders. As Alyssa said, primarily you will already have your partnerships developed. But if we see somewhere we're like, oh, you know who would also be great to connect with, we can help with those connections as well. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Sinead, who will give you some technical assistance tips that we believe will create a strong application.
Thanks. Thank you, Jenny. And again, this is our first time through this process. And, you know, we've had the opportunity to sit in on a couple of different information sessions. So, you know, as our role, we want to make sure that we're giving you some really great strategies to hopefully ensure that you get into that priority pool. And so, you know, one of our big goals for our build out comprehensive pathways that are connected that really begin at the Explorer level and end at the career launch. So students in our region have a comprehensive experience and get exposed to these pathways. So we are really trying to work toward building programming that supports those regional sectors and really build out the continuum. We also want to make sure that you get connected to the appropriate sector lead. We connect with those individuals pretty regularly. They're super responsive and totally helpful in terms of helping you to refine your strategy and also to connect in with potential other partners. Want to make sure that your application also serves our priority populations. And as Alyssa mentioned previously, select one focus area. And it's one application per focus area per organization, if that makes sense. So, you know, an organization should just submit one career explorer, one career prep application, and one career launch. And as Jenny mentioned, those partnerships should already be developed. And really work to understand those roles and responsibilities. I think that's going to be really important in this process, and when being able to speak to that when you do go into that presentation. So don't dilly-dally, as my mother would say, on developing that presentation. And so we just a tool that we have found to be useful in this work is this matrix that really identifies the partner type, their name, their role, and will they be receiving funding, just to really help you begin to map that out and make sure folks are clear. Again, we can't emphasize enough that presentation is, as we like to say, is pretty meaty. And so making sure that you're giving yourself enough time to really build that out, because it is different. In the past, you know, you had to put together this, for those of you that have been successful in securing these grants, a really comprehensive grant. And so now that process is basically broken up into two parts. So don't procrastinate. No, I'm teasing, because y'all would never do that, because you're amazing. So next slide. So we want to make sure that you have our contact information, and we are here to support you. So with that, we'll open it up for any additional questions or wonderings.
Okay, well, I'll start. I have questions.
Go ahead, Carol. Hi.
Hi. So I saw a lot of mention of CTE credit, but we're more focused on running start credit because we found in our first round that it was way easier to do it that way. Is that going to hurt us or at all?
It really depends. I think not really. Sorry, not it's not going to depend if it hurts you. I think what's interesting. Running Start can be CTE. I think what we're really focused on is those pathways that
Okay.
prepare students, right? And allow them to seamlessly transition into those post-secondary pathways that allow them to earn those critical credentials or degrees.
Okay, so we're thinking of career launch, and tell me if it's like way too specific to our organization, if you guys want to meet with us later for this, but we are we're halfway to creating Running Start credit that's going to be dual credit for a 2-year cycle. So we've got the 1-year cycle built. We want to build out the second year cycle. And then we also would like to hopefully align with the Maestros program and then and make sure that that credit is aligned with the Maestro seminar that they would get at Western and at Skagit. So is that the kind of curriculum development and alignment that we could write for a career launch, or should we expand the is it prep explore that we're currently doing?
Where's Danny? I mean, to me, it sounds like you're working to build out that launch. I think the other piece that you have is you do offer paid internships as well.
Yeah.
Because that's right, another component of career launch is
Yeah.
that you have that. So, I mean, to me, it sounds like you're trying to build out that career launch pathway.
Okay, because we didn't write career launch for the first one. We did career prep. And now I'm wondering, so now I'm sort of wondering, do we expand the career prep into career launch? Because when we did the prep, we weren't looking at dual credit, we were only looking at high school credit. But it ended up that we got dual credit, and now we want to finish the last piece of dual credit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we can definitely chat some more.
Okay.
I think with career launch, we would want to not only build out the college credential aspect, but also, I know we have chatted about two like paid internships.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
And I think making sure that's a strong piece within your proposal. And I see Danny. So feel free, Danny, because you are the expert, of course.
No, yeah, you're the expert too. Yeah, I think that the big piece here for the career launch is going to be the paid component of it. If you are able to offer credit, amazing. That's one of the requirements. It's either that or giving students an industry recognized credential. And that's one aspect of it. And then the other one is definitely having strong employer partners at the table that are willing to pay students for their time. And then they'll want to know like how many hours they're going to be doing that and things like that. So yeah, the paid component is the really critical one. If you don't have that, you won't succeed getting endorsed as a career launch program.
Okay, and can the credit, if the dual credit is a free credit, can that be considered part of the pay, or is it not considered part of the pay at all?
No,
Okay.
it has to be actual fiscal.
Okay, and then we would be paying them. We're not, somebody else is not paying them. So that's okay too?
Paying them with other funding or
Yeah, with other funding.
Or would you be considered kind of like the industry partner in this case then?
I mean, if it's launched, they're not in the industry yet. So yeah, I guess. I mean, we're the education organization, and we're paying them to for this paid experience with certified teachers, so that when they are finished with their entire career and they've got their certification, they have this extra paid experience.
Let me jump in, and I'm curious to know what Danny, your thoughts on this. This to me is sounding like an expansion of prep. And I'll tell you why. The students, while the students are gaining credit, they do not actually come out with the full industry recognized credential. They're not coming out with the teacher certification. They would need to continue on in that. So to me, that is my indicator of like, okay, not quite. This is awesome. And you're getting them credits. And I love that it's continuing on, like really continuing to support students on a career connected learning continuum and pathway. So I think that's fantastic. But that is kind of the one thing that sticks out to me, that like this is prep, because at the end of this, they are not ready to actually go teach yet. They will have to still get the credential they need to teach. Danny, thoughts, but again, I don't want to lead you astray. So Danny, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. Yeah, the goal is, I think for career launch, I think one of them, the component one is the paid component, but kind of the outcome of why we're endorsing programs is that by the time a student completes the entire program, that they're able to get hired on immediately doing the profession that they are seeking. So I think that is kind of another kind of critical area. Which is amazing. You're kind of like you're definitely enhancing and expanding your career prep program to offer that paid component of it. But yeah, I think definitely I would probably say prep on this one as well.
Okay.
I just have a question kind of regarding that, because kind of the program we have in mind to build and a lot of the programs at Snow Tech do train students and prepare them with the credentials to directly to enter industry, enter a job. But because they're not being paid during their clinical hours or internship hours, it doesn't count as launch, even though they can jump right into that career after they're done. So if like we want to build a program to qualify it as a launch, Jenny, I heard you say maybe one paid internship. Like, I mean, how many students do all the students that go through this program need to have a paid experience? Or just could it be like a pre-apprenticeship where 15% kind of go into a pay, kind of continue on? Because I just feel like our programs are launching them into their specific careers. They're just not getting paid while they're getting on the site, on work site learning, basically. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a lot of CTE programs, like give them the hands-on experience and the clear like differentiation between the launch and the prep is that paid component of it. That they want students to be able to get paid while they're gaining that training. So and then I would say probably like when you speak about like slots, right? Is it one student getting paid versus like the entire classroom? We don't have a like clear definition on how many, but it is a competitive process. So, you would need to kind of justify of like, right, because in order to get like the incentive of being career launch is that you'll get FTE funding, and they want to make sure that the FTE funding is going towards an instructor that's kind of rotating a lot of students through. So at least a classroom worth, or right, we would kind of like that would.
yeah, like I envision training the classroom and they all get their certifications to go directly into industry. But if we only had like one or two students that actually got into a paid internship, would
Can I
that?
jump in on that?
Yeah.
Because well, I have two parts, but one to that, and please, Sinead, Jenny, Danny, correct me. But I've been learning the career launch process as well. But I believe it's that they have to be offered to the whole class, not necessarily that the whole class has to take part in it. And so if the class is 20 students, then there should be slots for 20 students that can get a paid component, even if only a couple take it. So I'll check on that. But then the second part is also, Danny, please help clarify, these program builder dollars, the funding cannot be used to pay students for career launch.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a
Sinead.
couple. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say that I saw Sinead come off, so I want to double check that career launch piece.
think, and I also think like employer. So I've worked with other schools, high schools who have similar Jill, right? They prepare and students can leave with an industry recognized credential. And so when we were conceptualizing a program builder application, really one of the biggest aspects was cultivating those employers. and getting them to agree to interview and offer slots. But all of that is going to hinge upon their ability, right, at that time to be able to hire students. And so, so for instance, part of this could be, really focused on building those partnerships and building some guidelines in terms of how, students can apply and on and on. So I just want to put that out there too, because ultimately employers, I mean, we can't force them to hire. And it really is just dependent upon their season and what they can offer. But I think a really important piece is really developing that relationship and those agreements, and getting their buy-in, and their willingness to support students.
And to Sinead's point, I like that. It may be interesting if you have a few employers that are willing to offer paid internships, but maybe not the full class. But part of the application for Career Launch is that you will be working to gain more employers. I think that it kind of like that pilot aspect, like that may be a convincing argument to be able to push it to the Career Launch piece if by the end of the 18 months you have opportunities for the full class. So just another thought on that to consider when you're writing.
Great questions on Career Launch. Carol, I think you're next.
Yeah, I think Danya had a question about so if we wrote for Career Launch, just trying to think outside the box still, instead of prep, what about, so first of all, is our program, is our internship long enough if it's a 7-week program and they're getting like 168 hours or something like that? Is that long enough or is that not long enough for launch?
I believe there's certain requirements of if it's a paid internship that changes the credits that they need to earn. I mean, not credits, excuse me, hours they need to do in their internship for it to be paid component. That I'm not familiar. I'm not up to speed on the current hours. I know that the unpaid is 90 hours. That's what I've been working with. And then I've also heard that it's maybe double that if it's a paid component, but that is not, I don't have the final info on that. That would be like with OSPI, because you're talking about high school students, paid internship.
Yeah, so that's the other question that I think we have, is that we have a lot of high school students that then go on to Skagit for their first year and their second year. Is this all focused on high school students, or does it also include those first 2-year students at college level?
Yeah, it goes. Go for it, Danny.
Yeah, it kind of depends. We have career launch programs that start off in the senior year of K-12. We also have career launch that start off their freshman and sophomore years of a 4-year or community college. So it's kind of like I've shared this before, that it's like career launch really wants 45 credits to be offered to students, and that credit is going to determine with your partners what the hour of instruction is going to look like. Because Skagit might say we'll offer 30 credits, but that means that the student has to be in that training for 300 hours, or their requirement might be 250 hours, right? So it's really kind of working towards the credit and then working backwards on what that's going to look like for hourly wise for the training. And that's really going to be based on the partnership and the school that you're working with and what they want. But yeah, it's kind of like you do want to, the golden standard is 45 credits if you can. I have seen career launch programs that have met that requirement with like 30 credits, right? It just kind of depends on some programs offer less credit, but they offer more industry recognized credentials. Well, they'll get like 1 or 2 because they're not providing the full 45 credits, but they are offering kind of these other credentials to kind of supplement for that. So it's kind of just depends on what your program looks like, and yeah.
Okay.
And just to share, I think being in this space for this time, the gaining of employers and getting their like buy-in and paying students, that's what makes the career launch the most difficult to get, is because
Okay.
getting those partners to agree to pay is the hardest part of, that's why we, in order for you to assure the committee, since they know that employers are not willing like immediately to be like, yeah, we'll take 30 students and pay all of them, that is kind of what they're looking for, is they want to make sure. That's why we don't fund building relationships, because those relationships take such a long time to create. That's why they want to know and get kind of that certification from those program builders that yes, we've already have done extensive conversations with these employers, and we just need the money now to kind of start building this out so we can start giving them their return on investment when we implement the program.
Okay. Okay.
Great questions. So there's a lot of career launch. Anybody else have questions on career launch since that's fresh topic? Okay, maybe we'll open it up for career explore and career prep questions, maybe by category is helpful. Um, feel free to unmute yourself.
Y'all mentioned kind of that your priorities, that continuum, and if we were one of the emerging sectors in y'all's list, which will probably be a prep, should I do research on what explorers there are that we offer in the area that kind of lead to that, or should I just like, or should I try to include explorer stuff in our application and make that connection, or what would make it look pretty, I guess?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm thinking maybe reach out with us, see what programming that we know of, but also if you know of any, I think helpful to show that we're trying to build these cohesive pathways, and so we need the whole continuum. And there often are a lot of career explorer, and then it thins out as you go up to career prep and career launch because there's more barriers. It's harder to get those employer relationships like Danny mentioned. But I love you coming with your research. That I think helps strengthen it. But yeah, maybe there's some programs that we're also familiar with.
And let
And
me
those emerging ones to us, by the way, we have all of the sectors covered except for maybe two. So the two we left out, and this comes from workforce data, two we left out was finance and agriculture. And that's just because it wasn't really the whole region. But yes, we would like to lead all of those sectors, increase them. Jenny.
Yeah, Jill, so there's the explore component. If you're thinking prep, I think also, and maybe even a little more important is the launch, right? So when a student enters the program there at Snow Isle, then what are their options? And so I know that it branches off, right? So okay, students could go to industry, or they could go to this program, or they could go to this program. And you all being clear on that and making sure that students understand, because that's really what we're trying to build, is how students progress through and know the next step. What happens and what we've noticed is there's lots of siloing of great work, and the student goes through part of it and then doesn't know what to do next. I think you all do a great job of that, but I think being clear on that and saying this connects, this is here in the continuum, and this allows students to go here and here and here for that career launch component, it would be a powerful piece within the proposal and your presentation.
Jenny, I have a question. We have been working with the Working Waterfront Foundation to try and figure out, from the community boating center's perspective, how to fill some gaps and create better pathways. And just this morning, I was late to this call because I was meeting with Deb Granger, and we were talking through kind of how we could lever our megaphone, so to speak, and our kind of pathways for kids as they exist to kind of prepare folks to get into ultimately their career launch apprenticeship. But we just kind of are honing in on an after school program for teenagers that would kind of give them the basics of shop safety and PPE and some of these other kind of fundamental skills before pushing them into more of a committed summer-long program that I think they're developing to launch next summer. I guess with all that being said, is there any scale, like hours expectations that you guys are hunting for? I mean, if we did in our shoulder seasons of spring and fall, like a 6 to 10 week after school session, is that of a scale that is sufficient for funding, or is there some benchmark we're looking for?
First, cool. Welcome, Brian. Great to see you. We love we've worked very closely with Working Waterfront in their pre-apprenticeship that they are developing, like you said, and then their apprenticeship. So what not knowing the full details, but this is sounding like this could be explore or prep to me. And Danny, feel free to jump in as well. So I do not think that there's a set number of hours. I think going back to the career connected learning continuum, let me just for fun here real quick. I'll show that screen, that slide one more time. Since you're jumping in. So we presented this a bit earlier around the different aspects of career exploration, career prep, and then career launch. And this slide shows examples of that. So depending on the activities that you're looking to do, it may tip you one way or the other between career exploration and career prep.
Okay.
And actually back to like there were some conversations around like you can see even in career prep that 90-hour on-site internship, but
Right.
The prep piece that's not paid or doesn't have to be necessarily. CTE concentrators, those are that's some examples of what we've seen from career prep. Career explore, job shadowing, prep events, networking events. If you're thinking, after school 1 day a week for a couple of hours, that might be more of a career explore. Get them kind of, their appetites wet for this kind of thing. And gosh, if you really like this, here are the next steps. And again, that's a piece of developing that continuum, is getting students to explore that industry and become excited about the opportunities there.
Okay.
So we can certainly go ahead and send out this slide deck after. So
Cool.
you can take a look at this. And see a little further about where you're comfortable applying. Hey, good morning. I see you've gained a partner. Danny, do you want to jump in on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of depends, like Jenny mentioned, of what you're thinking. If it's, I think when we're looking at the continuum, I'll just share is that as you start off at explore and kind of work your way up to launch, the number of slots and participants definitely narrows down.
Right.
So in order for it to be competitive, just as an explore program, right, we want to see a lot of students getting exposed to like a lot of industries, or you're taking a whole bus of students to like a company site and they're doing tours, or you're bringing the employers to where they're at. So as you go into prep, then that's a little bit more extensive. We're actually looking to see that there's some sort of curriculum or framework you're going to, and you're tying it to specific careers or industries. And then as you go into the launch, it's like really, really specific because they're getting paid and they're getting, like exactly what employer wants in order for them to get preference for like an interview or consideration or things like that. So depending on what that looks like on the ground, I would probably say that's kind of where I would lean into. And really the time frame of when these occur, that doesn't really matter. So a prep or explore or a launch, they can happen in the summertime, they can happen during the school hours, they can come after school, and all of that timing kind of depends on your partners in the schools that you're working with and what they already have going on. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I see a few more folks have joined us. So we're here for continued questions. Um, it we have no further sort of presentation. We will go ahead and send out the link to this to the presentation. We are recording this session, so we will work to get to make that available as well. But we do want to make sure that you know you have your Career Connected Learning Network here in Career Connect Northwest, and then you have Danny here. We are happy to stay and answer questions, continue to answer questions until you're all out.
And I came up with a question here, Danny. I want to make sure I'm tracking the timeline. So the apparent successful bidders would be announced in November. I'll stop. Does that one sound right so far?
Yes.
Yes. And then, so from then until January, early January is when maybe they could finalize their presentation. And then beginning early January is where the convenience pool folks would start getting tapped to do their presentation. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, so end of like in November, we'll announce. Then folks will be in the convenience pool November, December, and during that time, while you're in the convenience pool, there'll be several presentations that are offered to everyone in that convenience pool. I'll simultaneously be working with the governor's office and selective committee to get that prioritization. So by the time end of around December, I should have a general idea of like what that priority order is going to be. So I'll be able to kind of share that, especially for the ones that are going to be the first ones up to queue in January. And then from that point moving forward, um, you'll have access to me and my team here. So if you have any questions, and you'll be able to rise. So as we're in that convenience pool, you can work with your partners, you can clarify, or you're kind of working on like, this is kind of unclear still for us. We need to kind of figure that out. You'll be able to kind of do that. Or if you already have all that figured out and you've learned like, all right, I need to have a lot of these policies in place or these trackers in place for my organization as a whole, then that's where we would want you to spend your time on as well, is let's figure out what things we need to have in place as an organization so that you're successful and you're compliant with receiving federal funding. And that's beneficial for you just because of this process, but just any federal funding that you'll ever get, they'll require the same kind of elements to have. And we can help with providing templates, working with you on language, whatever that looks like individually.
Okay. And so then the presentations would primarily, or those that are ready, maybe would take place in January. And then after that, it would be bi-monthly.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. And I see a hand from Brent.
Hey everyone, I'm Brent Lundstrom. I'm the director of the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. I'm really new to Career Connect, Washington funding type opportunities. One of the challenges that I'm seeing a lot of the colleges here in the state is that that students that are getting trained for certain certifications, that is not that the cost of taking the exam and the test is not included in their tuition. And so it makes it very difficult for a lot of students to actually earn those credentials. So I'm just wondering if I was to consider applying for something in having a pool of funding available for students to use for certain criteria of certification funding, where would that stack? What would that be? Career launch, career prep? I don't really know. I mean, the other question that I have is that There's a number of cybersecurity contests that are both on a national and regional level. That is a great resource for cybersecurity students to demonstrate their skills, to also employers as well. The Pacific Rim Cyber Defense Competition is just getting going. Last year, they hosted at South Puget Sound Community College. They had, employers like FBI, SpaceX, and some of those organizations there. I was really impressed with the engagement that students had there, but there's challenges in terms of funding the teachers to actually get time, because it's kind of a volunteer position. And there's funding issues with for getting the team to go to this event. There's so that's another area that I was curious about. So I'm just kind of wondering if you can direct me if I was to apply for something where I should focus and what would make sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Brent. Those are great questions. I think I don't have the best answers for you in regards to like we can support that. Both of those activities that you mentioned would not be able to be supported using this funding. So we can't use Program Builder funding to pay for student certifications or tests, things like that. We also would not be able to fund like entry fees and travel costs for students and instructors to go to these competitions. Those would be kind of considered implementation costs or just kind of, so we wouldn't be able to support both of those. So these funds kind of would only support like if you had a program currently right now and you wanted to like career launch, right? I think if for cybersecurity, paying for certifications is one of the biggest challenges for students because their tuition doesn't support that, then that's kind of why we created career launch programs, is that it's a program that they'll kind of, it's already embedded to what they're doing, but with the addition of they're actually getting an internship, a paid internship while they're going to class, and kind of pairing both things simultaneously so that they're better prepared to enter the workforce. With certain employers too, it kind of creates that connection, creates that that understanding of the business that they're currently doing that, and they're earning money. So that way, by the time they're done with that course or program, they have earned money to kind of pay for the certifications that they would need to finally kind of do that final step of it.
So you're saying the certification funding would be more of a career launch type program, and I'd have to have an employer that's signed up to take on those students. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying two things. I think one, like we can't pay for like this funding if you applied for any of the program types. The funding that you would get from ESD would not be able to pay for student certifications or the testing or any of that or the travel for them to go to these competitions.
Okay.
Now, like we can't solve that problem with this funding, but what I was kind of offering was that if you had a concept of a career launch program, building out that program would kind of solve that problem because a requirement is for them to get paid and they could use the money that they're getting paid to pay for the certifications. If that, yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I had put up that slide a little bit as Danny was talking. This funding serves kind of a unique niche within program development. So, there's the initial concept planning, partnership development of a program. This funding is really that program building. It is, developing, it could be developing curriculum. It could be developing additional partners. It could be building processes for internships or whatever the case may be. And then, but it does not fund that next step. And I think this is where your question's coming into, Brent, is that program implementation and student wraparound support. That is not included in the scope of this of this funding opportunity. So it really does it. I mean, I like to think of it as funding really like kind of the time and effort that actually goes into, building it so they can come. But it doesn't support the students once they're actually in it. That is, there are, and to Danny's point, I think there are other potential opportunities for funding for those pieces, career launch endorsement and enhanced FTE funding and that kind of thing could potentially support that, but it's not for this program builder grant. That's not included. Is that, Danny? Did I misspeak?
When you say program, can you give me like an example of what a program looks like?
Yeah. So I like sharing you have an idea of something, a business, right? And you need the startup cost to actually go do the thing and get the partners and build the process, buy the things. And then, your grand opening is you're cutting the ribbon and you're letting people come into your business. And that's where this funding ends. So it's kind of like, I already done all that work or planning and stuff. Now I just need the money to get it off the ground. And then once I'm open, then the funding kind of stops. And then that's why if you get a contract, it's kind of important for program builders to kind of consider like, how am I going to sustain this business or program long term, because the money stops at that point in time. And what we define as a program is it could be on the exploration side. It means a lot of different things. It could mean you're bringing students from a classroom and you're taking them to a business site so they can work or see developers and they can see the cybersecurity on site. They can talk to the business owner. They can talk to those staff individuals and ask 20 questions, right? You can bring in professionals into the school. A lot of that is just kind of wanting to expose students to all the different industries that are in their backyard, because a lot of them don't even know what's there. So a lot of that is just kind of, these are all the different positions. These are all the different things you can do as a cybersecurity individual or systems interacting with all these different types of systems. And you can kind of give them snippets of what that looks like. So that's kind of exploration. Prep is maybe there's a class in the high school that you're wanting to target that offers some computer science courses or a period. And it's really directed towards cybersecurity. It has an instructor. They're kind of going over these things. They maybe have like an unpaid internship where they have a couple hours here and there so that they can actually do the thing. And then the career launch is like you have either two courses or a couple like credits that you're getting at a community college or a high school, and you have an employer and the students are going to in the classroom and they're going to the employer site and actually working and they're getting paid while they're doing it. So those are all, and program is, a lot of folks kind of have things, but a lot of them are informal. They kind of just do it, right? And they have an individual that's coordinating it, and maybe it's not on a consistent basis. We call the program is like, we need everything to be formalized. So you need a document like, how do I recruit mentors? Do I ask them questions? What are they doing when they're with the student? Or you have a clear list of like, if I send my students to your business, what exactly are they doing while they're there? How long are they doing it? What are they learning while they're there? Kind of things like that. You have a complaint process. Like if there's a student or a teacher or a partner that says, hey, I didn't really like this. You need to have some kind of formal method to kind of resolve those issues. You have to have like a tool to report, like either you're tied to a school or you're a nonprofit. We still need to know like how many students are going through your program, how many have completed, how many got certified, how many dropped out, etc. So the program can be anything you create, but we do want it to be formalized from the point that a student walks into your classroom to the point that they are like graduated or has completed the course and got a certification. And all the things in between, like Jenny mentioned, usually all that kind of takes is a lot of time for someone to talk to the school or talk to the degree pathway dean or whatever. And it's like negotiating, right? It's like, can we offer this? How much credit will you give us? Do we need to document something? And then we're working with the employer, like when can I bring students? Who's going to be here to supervise them? All that kind of stuff requires a lot of time. And in some cases, some folks want to create their own curriculum from scratch. So that means hiring someone to help your company do a DACOM or do some kind of curriculum writing exercise if you don't have professionals that can do it. All that kind of stuff is supported. It's supported. It can pay for that stuff. And it can either pay you directly as an organization because you're doing all the work, or you want to take on the lead of coordinating folks, but you're going to subcontract out to these experts that are going to help you put these pieces in place. And that's why during the convenience pool, some folks don't know what documents they might need or how to like subcontract money out to a different entity and what steps are required to do it like legally. So that's where we come in to kind of help you kind of figure all that out and give you clear instructions of these are the things you need to do and how you can pass money from one entity to another one and things like that.
Great, thanks for that explanation.
Brett, I'm going to jump in just because I know what y'all are doing, or at least some of what y'all are doing up there, and I'll give some specific examples. So, like for example, you all run a summer camp, right, that gets kids into cybersecurity and cybersecurity interest. That is like a great example of career exploration. So let's say you didn't have that and you're like, how do we get kids involved? Like that, develop all the work that went into developing that camp and what y'all are doing every day and all of those things and the the registration and that whole process, that would be an example of what to develop something like that. Career prep, like Lord knows, we could really think about what does a course in high school look like towards cybersecurity to kind of get students involved, and how could that lead as a pathway in the region toward your program at Whatcom. Would love to see that. That would be a great example of career prep. But like, what does that curriculum look like? What does it look like to connect with those high schools? What does it look like to recruit those teachers? All those kinds of things. Developing that could be a good example of a career prep level. And then career launch. I mean, we've seen in terms of how colleges have used career launch, literally they will launch a new degree or certificate and use these funds for a curriculum writer to develop all of those courses, course outcomes, course content, all of that stuff. That is how we've typically seen colleges engage in career launch, program development. That's the program, right? Is either that certificate or degree or whatever the case may be. So there's a couple of examples to kind of mull around. And again, if you have any questions after too, we're happy to connect if this is sparking anything for you. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's great. Thanks.
Of course. Ryan, you're up.
Hi, not sure if you saw me next to Brian, but I'm going to we're working on the proposal to submit to y'all for this. With that said, I'm in the marine trades. I'm a blah, blah, boat captain, inspect boats. For that though, I'm kind of curious about the tangible, non-expendable property, that $5,000 block that y'all were talking about. I was curious about, essentially we're, have a plan for bringing in middle schoolers, high schoolers, training them up on boats. And I'm just kind of curious about PPE. Would that be able to be included in that block of funding? I mean, I understand that some of those tangible assets they can last longer than a year, but I'm kind of curious about like filters, gloves when they go on site to a because I can essentially start to arrange walkthroughs to companies, get kids out on boats and that kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, all that stuff that you mentioned, we can pay for.
Okay.
It's the concept here of I like sharing with this is like if you're on a boat or you're in a classroom, if you need supplies to be in there to make sure that when the students, like you cut the ribbon, you let the students come in,
Yeah.
every student has supplies that the classroom needs for it to run. We can provide that. The $5,000 limit is we have gotten in the past where it's like we need a lift, and those are like $10,000. Like we can't pay for like big purchases like that. But if you need like PPE or supplies or things like that to establish and have, so that when your first cohort goes through your training, everyone has something and your program can have it, we can definitely support paying for that stuff.
Perfect. Would that include things like a chemical cabinet for, we have a lot of boat chemicals concurrently. They're in a just regular cabinet. They should be in something a little more safe. Would that lean into that? Okay.
As long as no one item is more than $5,000.
No, it wouldn't be. No.
What I'm hearing is they can't buy you a boat.
Yeah, which nobody needs to be bought a boat. No. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that distinction, Danny. No one item can be more than $5,000. I think that is really helpful in terms of, going through, okay, PPE, they're a couple of dollars or $10 each, right? Or like a cabinet, that's going to be a couple $100 or even at that, whatever. But it's no one item can be over 5,000. Thank you for that. That's helpful.
And that's because these are federal funds, right? That's tied to the federal funding, right? Yeah.
Requirement.
Actually, one more. Sorry. So speaking in terms of staff salaries and benefits. So essentially, I mean, I've been doing this a lot of volunteer, been helping out, and I'm not trying to take the entire pot, all right? But I'm kind of curious if, my consultant fees would have to be disclosed. And I just want to make sure that any percentages of that wouldn't be coming over, or if there's something that's already set. Realistically, a lot of the majority of this funding, I want it to go towards supplies. I want it to go towards getting people in the door. I want that to make clear, but also like my travel time to get here and that kind of thing. How would that be disclosed, or how would y'all prefer that?
I think we don't have our requirements are the contract amount that your request can't be more than 250,000. That's our max.
Okay.
So and again, I'm saying competitiveness, right? Because there might be an application that's this and there's another one that's like this, and they offer the same thing, but one's cheaper, right? I don't know. Just kind of depends. But you get to split that however you like. You can do salaries, benefits, some travel, and some supplies, and some indirects if you can, or if you want to, or you might need to subcontract some things out, and that's okay. Yeah, it's as long as our thing is like, as long as it's not more than 250,000, you can kind of figure out those costs and how much you feel like you deserve, and for the work and time you're doing, and we can, as long as it's reasonable. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
And just to clarify, and like absolutely, these funds have funded time and effort to do this work. It takes people's time and effort to create a program and to build those pieces. So that is absolutely part of the budget, or could be part of the budget should you so choose, and either in the form of salary and benefits or subcontract, depending on if you're working with another, with a company or whatever the case may be who's applying. So, Danny, I want to make sure that's correct as I'm saying it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It would be probably unusual if there weren't asks to cover some staff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think, yeah.
Seems fair. Thank you very much.
And thank you for volunteering your time. Hopefully you can get paid now.
Yeah, hey, there are lots of people certain people on boats, and if I can help change that, my heart soars. So I'm willing to get time for that. So that's fantastic.
Ryan, I'm curious, where are y'all based?
Bellingham. So I was in Port
Okay.
Townsend, and I service Puget Sound
Okay.
company. I work with contract captains up through Alaska, down through Mexico, but based out of Bellingham. So that's somebody told me to walk on over, and I should check out this beautiful boating center. And then I heard Project Bronze and Van Vamos is like the Hispanic version of boating, and I'm like, well, this is cool, and how many of those people do I see when I'm out there on the seas? So yeah.
Very cool.
Well, Ryan, we should connect because we're hoping our career prep program will be for vessel operations and maritime. So we
That'd be
can
great.
Yeah.
Licensed captain, blah blah. Have a sailboat, and I want to run races full of people. So that's great.
And then Brian is thinking career prep. I mean, so there are definitely okay. So let me say this: there's a lot of momentum there. What I'm hearing in maritime. Make sure y'all connect with Ann Avery at the Center for Excellence in Maritime. They are the Career Connect Washington sector lead, and they are absolutely they're very responsive. But so you'll want to, if you're thinking of anything in maritime, make sure you connect with that sector lead, and I will work to pop in that link again into the chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
Got it, Jenny.
Thank you.
Yeah, just drop that there. They call them intermediate. The names have evolved, but it's sector leads. And so just like you're checking in with your regional network, that's us. You also, and you want to make sure your sector is in our priority. Maritime it's in our, is it emerging? Anyways, it is. Yeah. And then you also want to check in with the sector lead, and that's the link we just dropped. Jenny mentioned, Ann Avery is the contact there. And, I'm curious if anyone else wants to share if you're going for explore, prep, or launch, and what sector. Maybe there's additional connections here or anything we can help get our wheels spinning on other connections. It's okay if you don't.
If anyone knows, or you're ever curious, throw them at me. Just
Okay.
put my email down there, and yeah, I've made myself as easy to find as possible. But it's all about as much as connections as I need to make a network and talk to people to get them on boats. I will do. So please,
That's great.
don't hesitate.
That's great. Thank you. Alva, or is it Dania? Any questions? Danya.
She's with FAE and Carol.
Yeah,
Oh, gotcha.
no questions.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, just checking in.
Well, all right,
That
y'all.
might be it.
I want to we'll thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Danny. This was so helpful. Thank you for taking the time to answer all of our participant questions as well as our questions. Really helpful to get some clarification. So as again, Danny, will you just run through last when's the grant due and any other considerations before we hop off?
Yeah, the only other date that we have is October 16th. So that first application is due on the 16th of next month. So make sure if you are applying to get your appendixes into our contracts office before then.
Excellent. I just love to end and wrap up with that due date, just in case anyone, needs to hear it again. All right, y'all. Well, have a great day. And if there are additional questions that come up for you, don't hesitate to send them our way. And again, I will end here with our contact information here. On this call, I'm Jenny Veltri. We've got Sinead Fitzpatrick Ploggy here and Alyssa Jackson. So any of us can answer questions. Don't hesitate to CC all of us on an email as well. And that helps us to get back to you as soon as we can. All right, y'all. Well, thanks again. And happy Thursday. And good luck to everyone who's submitting a proposal. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.